สวัสดีค่ะ Hello everybody. So welcome back to Bitazza Invites, the live AMA that we've been doing all year. This year, every couple of weeks, I am Didi, the Chief Communications Officer of Bitazza. And first of all, apologies for being a few minutes late. So today we have a very exciting guest that is here with us, which I will introduce in a second. But let me say hello to our audience in Thai so that they know that we will be doing a recap in the Thai language at the end and then be broadcasting tomorrow. สวัสดีค่ะเพื่อนๆทุกคนนะคะดีวิมลพันธ์วิบูลย์มานะคะ Chief Communications Officer ของ Bitazza ก็วันนี้แน่นอนนะคะทุกคนมารวมตัวกันที่นี่เพื่อที่จะมาฟังตัวแทนจากทาง The Sandbox นะคะก็เป็นโปรเจกต์ที่ทุกคนพูดถึงโดยเฉพาะช่วงไตรมาสหลังมานี้นะคะแล้วก็เดี๋ยวยังไงวันนี้ดีกับคุณอาร์ตก็จะสรุปทุกอย่างแล้วก็เอามาเล่าให้เพื่อนๆฟังเป็นภาษาไทยเหมือนเดิมก็อย่าลืมส่งคำถามเป็นภาษาไทยแล้วเดี๋ยวเราจะแปลให้เลยนะคะระหว่างนี้ก็ขออนุญาตสลับไปเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเหมือนเดิมก่อนนะคะโอเคSo without further ado, I feel like this project really doesn't need any introduction anymore. I think it's been, raising cryptocurrency to top of conversation, not just in the crypto industry, but also in the mainstream. Terms like GameFi and Metaverse is now really on the top of conversations. So with a market cap of over 4.6 billion, the Sandbox is here with us today with the Chief Operating Officer and Co-founder, Sebastien Borget.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hello. So good to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure as well.
Cool. Okay, so of course, I have my CEO and co-founder of Bitazza with me also today, Gavin Pongpandesha or Art. Hi, Art.
Hi, Didi. Hi, Sebastian. And hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Okay, so let's get right to it because I know that a lot of people have been anticipating for this show, and this is essentially the last AMA that Bitazza will be doing this year, and there's no better way to close the year than to have this special guest with us. We're so excited, Sebastian, and again, in Thailand, the community for the Sandbox is huge, and this embrace and adoption of GameFi and just the term Metaverse has been really changing the world. I can't wait to talk to you guys.
It's an honor to be today with you and your last guest of the year. I hope I will be up to your expectation and share with you exciting news. And yes, a special big thanks to our Thailand community. It's been one of the communities that's been growing so much this year in Sandbox. It became more than the top 10. I think we're now in top 5 sometimes, both in landowners, in artists, in the game makers. So I think we'll be doing something. We need to have official Sandbox Thailand with a person that represents a team and think how we can grow and keep growing here.
Nice. Yes, Sebastian. So before we go into the project and the AMA, can you give us a little bit of background of where you came from, how you got involved with Sandbox? I believe you guys started way back, even before even Ethereum was invented, right? Like way back. But maybe you can give us a little bit of background why why you got into this space and how Sandbox came to be.
Absolutely. I've been for more than 10 years. I've been an entrepreneur for more than 14 years, and I spent the last 10 years into mobile gaming before. The Sandbox actually started as a mobile game originally. We were one of the first mobile free-to-play game studios, and we were thinking, how do we use smartphone and this new technology to bring some disruption? And disruption was to turn any player into a creator just by the touch of their finger on the screen. So they could mix all different kind of elements, play with physics. You put soil, you plant a seed, you drop water, grows a tree. You put fire, make ashes and burns. And then add characters, add life, etc. And then it became sort of this game maker tool, which just drag and drop with a finger, and become a huge success, which over 8 years had more than 40 million installs and 70 million players creation. That's but back then, somehow also, like despite such a success, the creator who were the main contributor to the success, the financial success, even the company, which was acquired in 2018 by Animoca Brands, a larger company, also a pioneer in blockchain gaming. I had no way to reward those creators. Like, I don't know, pay them a little something or give them something of value to them. And over time, that created an issue because, well, even if you're very passionate by something, you like doing it, like basically, we couldn't retain. So there was a retention issue after a while because we were not able to reward those creators properly. So at the end of 2017, I was exploring new technologies, this time blockchain. I saw the first blockchain game, CryptoKitties. And well, I bought those NFTs, I tried out and I said, wow, this is very powerful. Like someone can own into a wallet, a virtual cat, sell it somewhere else without asking the developer for permission. This is a great idea, but why do we apply it just for virtual cats? Why don't we make it that just anyone could make their NFTs and as such could transfer it to someone else and sell it the way they want? And that really was the original idea that give birth to the new Sandbox, this time 3D, multiplayer, multi-platform, and with NFTs at the core, where any content made by any user would be an NFT and they would own it and be able to monetize it the way they want.
Well, sounds like a great long journey that you've come to be here. You know,
yes,
I think
we've been after that 3-4 years pioneers in blockchain gaming. Yes,
right. Did the so I think one of the reasons that blockchain in the metaverse took off was also partly due to play to earn being popularized by Axie Infinity, and also Facebook declaring its venture into the metaverse. How did that play out in terms of like Sandbox, how you positioned as a decentralized metaverse, going up against the giants of Silicon Valley?
Yeah, well, as I was referring, we've been building Sandbox for over 3 years now, and we've been one of the true pioneers in the space. We've taken an approach that was always community first and building the product first before launching the token, etc. So we built a solid community around like creators, around artists. Then we launched the Sand token, and then we launched various things like the land NFT towards December 2019. And progressively, we've shown that there was demand and there was utility for the token that we introduced, which put progressively Sandbox to climb up, I would say, the ladder to be more recognized among the space, and to be really seen as this platform that, well, it's an open metaverse that anyone can use to increase the value of their own community, to increase the utility through building and owning land, for example. There's been a strong acceleration this year since I would say 2021. There was a first wave around the summer around virtual real estate that made Sandbox more global and people understand better what we were building. And more recently, indeed, the rebranding of Facebook as Meta, which has been sparkling a lot of wondering from anyone in the world, what is the metaverse and how can I test it, etc. And usually when these things happen, like when a big giant tech companies say, oh, well, I believe the future is this or that, like I believe the future is in AI or in self-driving automobile or into, I don't know, robotics. Many people will then look at, oh, how do I invest in the future? Like, how do I buy a stock from the companies that are building that future? So I position myself. And well, the thing is, like, today people are not only investing in stocks, they also invest and mostly invest into tokens because it's more democratized. That's the benefit of what blockchain has been growing for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And that benefited Sand token among many other metaverse tokens. But beyond that, Sandbox has been proving the positioning as well. Like we have the community, we have a concrete product that people could play, which was the alpha, it's just closed. We have the tool like GameMaker that you can use and create. And so we got a lot of traction progressively as we announced the alpha, as we also announced our Series B led by SoftBank, Vision Fund 2, one of the most renowned investment fund that drove like Uber, that brought WeWork and other big disruption in our life, the way we work, where we live, etc., we move, etc. And it put a lot of even more credibility for many people who were still wondering, like, why do we need NFT into a virtual world? Why we cannot keep working with a centralized one? I think that's been really a key pivotal moment where people have recognized Sandbox as a really serious container and a real serious alternative versus like the more centralized metaverses, which are Facebook, Roblox, Fortnite, etc.
Yeah, you mentioned like the SoftBank investment into Sandbox. It's a massive raise that got a lot of attention from a lot of people. So just wondering, like, what is your vision? This massive raise, that how you planning to spend the money to grow the ecosystem? It seems like you guys are growing a lot with a lot of partnerships. What's in the pipeline for you guys for 1 year from now, or even further down the road?
Well, it's essentially doing the same, but better, bigger, faster. So we've been seeing tremendous growth, like moving from 500,000 wallets last month to 1.3 million wallets this month. I think like our goal is 10 million wallets by the end of next year. We hope to achieve that by bringing more major IPs and brands in Sandbox. The last one which introduced were Walking Dead, Deadmau5, Steve Aoki, Adidas, and we have a great roster of other companies which are planning entering Sandbox next year, including game studios, fashion house, and more. We also have launched the alpha on November 29th. It just closed yesterday, and it was a great success. We had hundreds of thousands of users who played, sometimes simultaneously, experiencing what a first taste of what play to earn could be. And it has inspired a lot some of our 40,000 plus creators using GameMaker, of what they can do, how they can make the metaverse not just play, work, but a lot of different flavors in the between, just as dancing, chatting, various fun activities, life moment of life that we share together, doing all sorts of things. And using the system of the NFT ticket as a gating to the entrance, and the battle pass, we call it the season reward system, where like based on your progression and engagement, how many times you came through the duration of the event, you can claim more proof of engagement, in a way, proof of work, and that will inspire not just the Sandbox to launch play to earn, but any landowner to launch play to earn. And why I'm excited is because we've just moved from 4,000 landowners in January to over 17,000 landowners today, which means that, well, it's almost 4 times more people who own land, which will build experience, which will open their own play to earn season. So as a user, when you will be entering Sandbox in a year, hopefully even less, you will see so much choice of option of how you can earn, and you do not need only to play like a battling game repeatedly. You can do that attending virtual concert, seeing a gallery, chatting with other users. Like the landowner can decide how he wants to reward his community as well. And that's, for me, that's how play to earn will keep growing and bring more and more people in the audience.
Right. So I view the Sandbox as this kind of like digital nation where, it's a world of its own. People kind of have to buy land to be able to, play and participate in the economy, or, just be there. But now you
don't need to buy land. You only need to buy land if you want to publish an experience on top of it. But everything in Sandbox can be done for free without owning any NFT.
Right. So you have this limited resource, which is land, right?
Yes.
How does that work? Like, for example, how much land has been sold? Like, is it almost sold out, or is there more land to come? Or in a case where people buy all of the land, what happens afterwards? Do we have to just live with on other people's land, or is there a mechanism through which people can vote for more land to be created? How does that work?
No, land is a fixed resource, just 166, 464, and there will be never ever any more than that. That's the proof that and the trust that people have. It's based on the smart contract on the blockchain, and we've sold about 65% to date of virtual land. We plan to have land for sales until the end of 2022 in various land sale, which will introduce new IPs, new partners each time. And once we've sold out, we just sold out. Like will not. That's also real digital scarcity. We cannot make more ourselves, etc. So it will be only users to users in secondary sales or potentially renting if like a owner of a certain location doesn't want to sell but still want to host and generate a certain return on his parcel. And that's, I think it's very different from what we've seen in the past with Second Life or like Roblox or the App Store, where like every day there's been thousands of new games coming up and new content, etc. Which like I think this infinite supply doesn't guarantee the quality. It just create a lot of like long tail content that people stop playing over time. Whereas like in Sandbox, like since there is a limited amount, there is economics that work, like games that stop being maintained or that stop generating revenue, their land will probably be resold or reused to always offer fresh content that's in line with the dynamic of like the overall virtual world.
Actually, you answered some of the questions that I had in regards to your experience utilizing your years in the gaming industry and moving that over to this decentralized gaming world, as well as the creators economy. What would you say were some of the other things that you've taken over from the traditional gaming world?
Oh, I think you're muted, Sebastien.
Sorry, but delivery man. I'm here. Hello. Yes. Can you repeat the last question? Sorry.
Sorry, I don't think we can hear you, Didi.
Oh, I was also on mute. Okay, I'm back. No, the question was, since you've spent so many years in the gaming industry and the journey has been quite long for you to have arrived in this decentralized gaming platform, what would you say were some of the other things that you could take from the traditional gaming world and using it in this creator economy situation right now?
I think there's a lot of things that can be taken from the real world into the idea of a digital world. First of all, the logic of like an economy in place with like assets of value that services and then digital jobs that relates to providing those services or building those assets of value. Like meaning like there's a whole creator economy, people who can craft content and build it, and we'll need not just a few hundred of them, we'll need millions of people to build the metaverse. Literally like million of metaverse architects, which we are going to create all those exterior or interior ambience, people who will create the in-game assets, even the fashion designers for virtual avatars typically. We also need like gamers, community managers, and more, We also need players, coach, guild manager, and much more. And I think there will be even like virtual real estate manager. Actually, there are in Sandbox, or people who are focused into developing the real estate of Sandbox by buying land and building experiences and repackaging them ready-made for some others people to enjoy. Sometimes we joke, but like this, you could even think like there will be someone like the lawn gardener for your house, or someone just welcoming your guests into your house. And it's true, like property doesn't deteriorate in the metaverse. Property builds so much faster, like it's a matter of hours, days, weeks at worst, to build into a virtual world. Whereas in the physical world, it's so complex. It takes time. You have to get a lot of paperwork. It's going to take you like months, years, usually, to start building. You have access to like a global audience as well. So you can have, and that makes the metaverse exciting, because it's a place rich of culture where you meet people from Thailand, people from France, people from the US, and all of them can enjoy and party at the same place, for example. So makes you really international in aspect. You can become the virtual neighbor of like a very popular brand, either one from the physical world that came to Sandbox, or like a new brand like the Bored Ape, etc. Choose to believe and to build next to your favorite community, or at the intersection of a few interesting community. So you really have access to this kind of new opportunities that didn't exist before, or were quite inaccessible before, because everything has been built years, thousands of years before. The second thing I think is interesting as a dynamic is how, as a digital nation, like we sometimes compare ourselves to a country that's governed by the users who own the businesses, who own the lands into it, who own the token of the economy. And those businesses, unlike in other countries, they have really a say to vote in the governance of that country. Also, they can really be the first that reap the benefit from the value they create. If you start a business in Thailand, I don't know how much real benefit for you get and for your employee. Like a lot of that will go into various tax, etc., which are good. They support infrastructure, but sometimes you also lose a lot of money because of various elements that you feel are more friction for your business to succeed. In the metaverse, we as a platform already pay 50% of all the revenue generated, whether from the secondary sale or from primary sale, and we give it back to the foundation, to creator. All the rest is for you, so you can hire more people, you can create and develop better, etc. That, I think, is really interesting to see already happening, and how it's going to keep developing at scales with 100 of thousands of creators and the values it generates into that new world.
How exciting. I think the next question from me personally would be that we see a lot of buy-ins, we see a lot of beliefs and trust, and from brands that we probably would not have imagined otherwise, just ranging between, franchises of well-known characters, the Smurfs, Care Bears. You just mentioned now working with Adidas and artists like Snoop Dogg. So basically you're touching on all these different industries, fashion, art, music, and even corporate companies. Has that been challenging for you in terms of creating the buy-in and the adoption? Because the idea of what you're creating sounds so futuristic and a little bit also boundary pushing. How has that been working for you in terms of expressing your creation so much so that you've acquired so many partners?
It took time. Like everything, the first IP we talked to, it took us 12 months to explain the vision, convince them, show that we could build, etc. So it's always the first one, which is the hardest, but they also were willing to take the risk, to trust our capacity to build and our experience. and now they are one of the first to benefit from it. After, I would say like overall 2021 has been a great year for NFT and gaming, which has NFTs first, which has really been supporting us approaching more brands, because then a lot of brands were wondering, how do I enter NFT space, etc. But they were not doing it the right way. They were just dropping with a short-sighted vision of like, how do we create value? How do we use this medium to engage more with our community and fans? But at least they were curious, and from their curiosity has allowed to initiate conversation, to explain them what is our vision, what is the utility attached to an NFT, to Sandbox, like through the user-generated content, allowing your fans to play, to build, to experience, to be closer with you. That's something unique that you do not find anywhere else. And progressively, we've been able to develop the world of Sandbox as well in a very diverse and culturally rich way, by bringing IPs from Korea, IPs from Japan, from the US, putting them together on the map, people seeing that, people seeing how land sales were going quickly, and how beyond the land, what can be built. Like anyone who joined Sandbox community or watch our Twitter now can see like creators publishing all the time, like what can be done. Yesterday, we announced Stephen Curry, and Stephen Curry showed a video of like, okay, how his new virtual sneakers and NFT could be used across multiple virtual worlds. That's also quite interesting, the concept of interoperability, by the way. Steve Aoki, then Mao, Snoop Dogg was also like a key moment as well. I think there was a before and after Snoop Dogg, essentially, in Sandbox. Like people really visualize and say, oh, wow, now like Snoop is doing that, and it's really cool.
I can see that. Yeah, I think sometimes it takes the first person to take the risk with you, and then you use that as a real use case and showcase what can be done for others as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I also think that's a very interesting dynamic that we see, that once you get a popular artist, in the metaverse, people started to bid up the land prices around his property, right? So that there's this idea of this like proximity, like being close to something, right? And then that has some value, and that basically is what's basically what we see in the real world, happening on the metaverse. So I think it's also a very interesting outcome that we see. So how does this scale in the future? Because your goal is to create this massive space for people to come together, and I know you guys have very ambitious plans to grow to millions and millions of people to be onboarded. But you guys are built on Ethereum, which at some time at some point people are saying that gas is expensive and all that. So how scaling to you? Have you run into issues yet that you feel like needs to be addressed, or do you think that like Axie Infinity, for example, created their own sidechain called Ronin, right? Like, is there something that like that in the pipeline for you guys?
So indeed, we've been experiencing like almost any project like that growth and that scaling issue behind. Mostly since we rely on Ethereum layer 1, we've seen the land sale going so fast, etc., not being an issue, but for the marketplace and user-generated content and for really being up to the standard of speed and efficiency and environmental impact that we wanted, we needed to move, and we did move to. We're in the process of moving to Polygon, so we chose Polygon after benchmarking, etc. We found that their community, the technology, and the efficiency were right on spot for what we needed, and the complexity of Sandbox smart contract as well, natively being supported. So we've been working through past 6 months to migrate all the different tokens progressively. We launched just 3-4 days ago the first step, which was like migrating Sand token to layer 2. We introduced a pool on QuickSwap for staking, and it became the number 3 pool on the QuickSwap with more than 100 million worth of Sand and Matic being staked at the moment. And now that Sand is on QuickSwap, then everything becomes possible. Next year, the asset will come on QuickSwap, on layer 2 Polygon. Land will come on layer 2 Polygon, and everything will be there. I think for the benefit of users in terms of user experience and fees that will be just paid by us, by the way, so no more gas fees even, which we hope will even accelerate even more like adoption of NFTs and the marketplace selling out.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's also something that Axie Infinity did that jump started their the upward trajectory in terms of like the usage, because it was so expensive. And in terms of like the demographics of people using, you did mention that Thailand has become like one of the top the top in terms of like popularity, like top 5 or something, right? So why is that the case? Why do you think that there's some adoption coming out of Thailand? Did you do something, did you basically targeted the Thai community, or did that just come, naturally somehow?
So, well, I think it's really came out organically, and that's been a very strong, very positive surprise. Like we didn't localize the Sandbox in Thai, etc. But there's something very unique in Sandbox that you do not find in any other community. Is the fact that we have all those creators originally, because like we're gaming first, and we provide 3D assets creation tool called VoxEdit, and the game maker that is no code. And I know Thailand is it's a popular place with many 3D art studio for movie, animation, and gaming as well. It's been for quite some time within the video game industry. And that's been, I think, like one of the main driver. Like people were looking for alternative source of revenue, how they can monetize better their skills. They discovered the tools, and maybe through word of mouth, because they had fun creating and it was successful, it brought more and more people on.
Right. And
Yes.
what about the other countries? Like, what do you see? Where else is Sandbox being adopted besides Thailand?
Sandbox has been the top 5 countries of Sandbox have been historically the United States, Korea, Japan, China, and then Italy, surprisingly. But yes, art as well was born in Italy, and there's a lot of artists there too. And now it's been expanding recently with Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Turkey, India, among all those great countries as well.
That's exciting. I think one of the reasons that got us so excited about gaming and NFTs and the metaverse is the fact that it's being adopted by these emerging countries, emerging markets, right? People who are traditionally unbanked are now just using MetaMask as their first bank account, and I think that's very exciting. So, what do you see as integrating different products that are normally not in the metaverse, like for example DeFi, into the metaverse? How is that being done today?
I think it's really interesting. Like now that we have established with land, with assets, a layer of an infrastructure layer of like people understanding that what they can do with those assets, we've been seeing into the ecosystem of Sandbox like various use case and product being built that touch to DeFi, GameFi, etc. Typically, we are seeing more and more users who own land and can borrow ETH or Bitcoin by collateralizing the land. We've seen a lot of like metaverse index funds where like they own a certain portfolio of different tokens, including lands, including sands, to provide an exposure to investors who do not know how to select a land parcel or how to build and how to exploit it. We've seen like various use cases to our like now like renting protocol. We've seen people who are designing their own mechanics around staking sands and another token to earn NFTs that can be built. And we also seen all the interoperability, like if you own a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk or another collection of NFT, to be able to use it to and turn that NFT into a 3D avatar that you can then play and interact into Sandbox and potentially earn as a proof of engagement, etc., from those tokens as part of that community.
Very cool. You mentioned Bored Ape being on Sandbox. So how does that work? So basically, you create a 3D rendering of the Bored Ape, which is normally a 2D object. So in the metaverse, that will become an avatar that people could use to go around and basically form communities. Is that right?
Exactly. And that's like we detect in your wallet, you own that Bored Ape, and we generate a 3D equivalent version, which increase the utility then, because by owning the 2D picture, you can play directly with a 3D character that can jump, run, fight, kill enemies, and do a lot of other action. You can chat with him, you can dance with him. Then if you own that character, before you could do nothing with it. Now you can do all those things. What happens? For most of the owners, they are going to keep it because they have a real utility behind. They can play with it. If all the holders of a certain community of NFTs keep those NFTs rather than sell it, what happens to the price? Well, if there is more demand, but then nobody wants to sell, the price tends to rise as well for those. And that's create value for everyone who integrates with virtual land in Sandbox, and it creates benefit for the holder, for the project to expand the universe and use the game making for adding more stories and more, and also it creates value.
Interesting. So actually, we've been getting a few questions from our audience. Let me just interrupt our discussion here and take some questions from the floor. So there is Kunte who asked a question, several questions really. So let me just summarize this. Really long questions. Okay, I'm gonna go with number one. For gameplay in the final version, when traveling between parcels, does it have to be done by portal only? Is it possible to walk through adjacent parcel seamlessly without portal? That's the first question.
Yep. Yes. The portal is a way to visualize in a simpler manner that you can definitely teleport yourself at specific points. But normally, like you could use the borders to move into the adjacent parcel. You will then be spawning at the spawning point, not necessarily right at the very same spot. But I think that's already very powerful, like this concept of virtual neighborhood through a 3D avatar.
And then the second question is about actually the renting of the land. So it's a really interesting question, and he's actually asking some suggestions about managing the land.
So at the moment, we haven't yet enabled publishing your game on your land to anyone. That we just launched the alpha where we did that, and we only ourselves to show how it will work, plus one extra community-made game that was very high quality that we enabled. So next year, once we enable landowners to publish their content directly, we'll also start to develop the renting. Then it makes sense, because why would you have a renting mechanism if there's just no demand behind for putting anything for renting? So just building things in order, that will be coming.
That would be premature to launch right now, I understand. So the last question, are you planning to make Sandbox integratable?
I think Sandbox is trying its best to stay true to the notion of being open and interpretable, meaning like Vox edits use a voxel format that can be used with other software and can be exported to other software as well. We've already seen a lot of that. We're allowing to import NFTs and display them in Sandbox. We're allowed to create NFT and use them outside of Sandbox. So yes, but if you have more ideas on how we can do that, feel free to reach out to us and tell us what you'd like to do.
Cool, good answer. So I'm going to go to the second gentleman here, Kun Panupong. also asking a few things, but I think I'm going to summarize it here, that he's asking whether there would be a plan in the near future to develop a voice chat feature, because in this gentleman's opinion, he thinks that that is going to increase the community vibes and let the players interact with the game and the NFTs community in a sense of organizing the virtual events so for people to talk to each other. And he's made a point that since the game would be in a virtual world, people who build hotels, you won't able to actually be sleeping in there. You see restaurants, you cannot eat there. You see restrooms, you cannot use. But talking on the platform is something that he's suggesting. Do you think that would be an option?
So, voice chat into a virtual world is a complicated feature, not technically, but more in terms of user experience. Do you really want to enter a space with a lot of noise that you cannot necessarily turn over? How do you moderate voice in multiple languages, etc.? It's more complex than chat. And actually, we've seen many games and many virtual worlds remove that feature as a benefit towards the greater community rather than add it. Besides that, there are great tools for voice chat. Like most gamers, most people, they either have their phone next to them and they speak on the phone while they play, or they are on Discord and they use Discord to do that at the same time. Mm-hmm. So not saying like we are not interested in chat, just thought like because of the quality of the existing solution, maybe that was not the priority for us to put first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very fair comment. Sure. Okay, there's another question here from Kun Patharawat, because we addressed the local love for the Sandbox from Thailand. So this gentleman's asking, is there a chance for the Sandbox to have Thai language as one of the features?
Yes, we actually have in place now a system where anyone could localize a whole website and product. So I think we'll definitely start releasing information on how to do that. So like every community can localize Sandbox in the language of their choice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we've answered a lot of the questions from the floor. So back to us. Actually, this question of building the communities online and things like that. And this is something that I think Art and I have been discussing with a few project owners regarding, social media and the integration of, kind of building something that is more sociable, like in this virtual world. I would want to ask you, do you see, it's the Sandbox as a platform that could potentially have an impact or essentially replace the centralized type of social media with the most decentralized one?
We hope that indeed Sandbox could become a place where users own their identity, own all their digital asset, own all their currency, and could do many more things than what they've seen in alpha, to the point they do not need to spend time over a centralized social network, do not need to keep having their data collected and use that to target them, to try with ads, etc. So, and the more we educate people about that, like you should care about your own data, you should care about your privacy online, and you should own the content you make, you should own your login, and that's what is Web3 all about. And because of that, you will be able to benefit Sandbox, but not just Sandbox, anything, like starting from your wallet. I think this will be more and more beneficial for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I also want to come back to the token sand, the token itself. Like the token seems to be able to do a lot of things. You can use that to purchase, to trade, play in the games. You can use that to govern the system and create interesting things. So how does the token accrue value? Like how does it work? Because some other platforms they accrue fees, take a percentage of the fees, and then that goes back into the treasury, and that So can you help explain how the Sand token is used in this entire ecosystem?
So Sand, one of the first utility of Sand token is actually it's a medium of access. So you need Sand in order to buy land, to buy assets on the marketplace. You earn Sand as you play, the play to earn. This is really a token of Sandbox platform first, but then we already see other games and other dApps using and accepting Sand for many other purposes, by the way. Then Sand is a medium of governance. Owning Sand, owning land, owning an avatar will allow you, once we launch the DAO, to vote on key decision of the platform, taking ownership of it. You can also stake with Sand and earn a yield through that. So participating into the economy, even if you're not a player, not a creator, not a landowner, you can still bring value to this new digital nation, and you will be rewarded for that.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. That seems like there's a lot of utility that you can do with the Sand token. Is this something that is constantly evolving as well, like as the game progresses? And I also wanted to ask you on top of that, like how's the fee mechanics work? Because traditionally in traditional games, right, like let's say you pay for something, that direct like 100% of that goes to the gaming company, right? But in the Sandbox, is that different, and how does play to earn change that dynamic?
The utility of Sand might evolve over time. I think right now we spotted the three main ones, but who knows? This space evolves so fast that we will see and will adapt with the community. We're definitely seeing Sand becoming a top 40 cryptocurrency on CoinMarketCap. And as the utility and as the adoption grows, it becomes almost like universal. It becomes, we hope one day people will see Sand as the Metaverse token or the gaming token that will go beyond just Sandbox game maker and Sandbox platform itself. You could play a mobile game that's not related to Sandbox and still earn and pay in Sand. That, I think, would be a great proof of adoption. And we hope that it will, we can help trigger that.
Right.
I'm gonna bring up another question from the floor here. Kun Jirat asked, while we are on the topic of the Sand token, do you have any set goal or any particular projection of the Sand future? And if there are more and more players and the pricing of the token increases, would that essentially impact how difficult it is for new players to enter the space?
Yep. I think Sands now it's something we're starting to see. There's a lot of people who never bought crypto before, and they don't get ETH, they don't get Bitcoin, but they somehow get Sand because they associate Sand with this projection of gaming and metaverse. Right now, from what I'm hearing, like Korea, Sand is among the most popular cryptocurrency. It's becoming one that every crypto wallet owner has in his portfolio. And even if they never saw about Sandbox or played Sandbox, they understand, like we said before, like having Sand is a way for them to own in their portfolio exposure to the growth of the metaverse. And I think it's going to be universal, like hopefully the community in Thailand as well in the same way, and globally as well.
Well, how do you view the competition within the metaverse ecosystem itself? Like some people are saying that one way of thought, or one school of thought, is that it's like a winner take all kind of dynamic, where you can only have a few metaverse projects because that basically sucks in all the liquidity and all the other participants? Or do you see a world where it's more like spread out, where you have multiple metaverses where people can jump around and do different sorts of things?
I'm more of the latter. Like the idea of interoperability across, like to claim to be open metaverse, you cannot be the only one. Like basically, you become like if no one can transfer, like if transferring out of you means nothing because there's no other, like makes no sense. So I've been a big ecosystem player. I believe like having Decentraland, having Somnium Space, having Upland, etc., is a great showcase of like, all right, there's many possible use case and many different flavor. Some are more specialized into live events, some into VR, some into broader base. Us is like you need a client, and more gaming. Having plenty of choices, and then being able to move your assets and your avatar from one to another, that's the real vision of the metaverse. Like, and we're all a small part of it, basically.
I love that idea. Yeah, it's definitely something that I see that is very different from Web3 founders, where they kind of think of the entire ecosystem and how you can be a part of it instead of monopolizing it and then taking control of everything. So I love that answer. And also another question I have is like, if these metaverses are multi-chain, can kind of like hop around, would that be limited to just like Ethereum-based multiverses, or do you think that in the future you can have like metaverses popping up in also other chains, and then you have like bridges across different chains? And with that, is that a future that you envision, or do you see something different?
I've been for a long time until now, I'm still believing like users will hold multiple wallets, or like you have multiple credit card in your wallet, you can have like multiple chain and you can choose to interact with one or another. Then that means that at some point, and I hope technology keeps evolving so it becomes easier to bridge assets across chains. That's not that easy at the moment, but it could become. Whereas like it's really seamless, and well, there's a network you can use where asset can move, and it doesn't matter if I were to compare, well, like if I use MasterCard or Visa or American Express or just my favorite 7-Eleven store credit card to pay, it just goes through, it pays, and that's it. And I feel like I hope that someone is already building that, and that we, for example, Sandbox could benefit from it as well.
That's really interesting. So a lot of people, as much as there are so many people who are warming up and adopting the idea of the metaverse, NFTs and GameFi, at the same time, a lot of people are still skeptical and thinking it's a trend or a fad. So I think what we would want to hear from you is how do you see the direction of NFT, as well as the metaverse, as well as, I guess, decentralized gaming in general, going for the next year, seeing that we're starting the next year in just over a week?
Well, I hope like we'll just keep going in the same trajectory as now. Definitely, I don't know any single game company that's not working on a blockchain game at the moment, which means that by 2022 there will be really a huge amount of new games available on market, competing, sure, also from competition, bringing more innovation and essentially bringing more users, because then we have finally more choice of like what I want to play, what I'm more interested into. If I'm not into like breeding creator or fighting creator or having a 3D avatar, maybe I'm a fan of like a racing game or shooting game or trading card game, etc. And I will have plenty of choice, not just one game per genre, but more and more game per genre, which overall I think is great. The second thing I'm noticing is like the role that countries like in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines have been playing into this overall ecosystem. Whereas in mobile free-to-play, those countries had a lot of players, but didn't bring necessarily a lot of revenue. So they have been traditionally left out by all the major developers. And unless massive franchise like League of Legends, etc., the rest didn't really care so much. But now power is shifted because you have most of the users through the guilds. You have also developed more wealth, more awareness and education around playing blockchain game. And there are now even like local blockchain game being developed. So in a way, the industry, it's no longer like, oh, it's only games made from Canada or from US that are coming to market. There are games made in Southeast Asia. There are games made in Korea, of course, in Japan, and from other places, India as well. So the dynamics of empowering players and creators anywhere are already at play, and they will shift the way market perception and audience are. We are thinking about that.
Wonderful. And so I think this is almost, an hour of your time. So usually, at the end of each episode, we always ask our guests the same question, just because, personally, I'm also very interested in learning more about the motivation behind each individual, not just the project itself, not just, the project as a whole, but Sebastien, I just wanted to learn more about what motivates you. What is your passion in behind all of this? You've been working on the Sandbox since 2012. It's a long time in crypto, and in the same project in gaming. You've been working on this forever, working on the metaverse before it was even called the metaverse. So just wanted to learn from you what motivates you and basically what drives you forward till today.
I'm pretty much driven by those very same things since the beginning, like empowering players, empowering creators, being there with the community. That's what I've been doing for almost 10 years now since Sandbox started. And I'm glad that Sandbox keep growing and evolving over time. And we are excited that this is becoming a bigger movement, and communities in many parts of the world, even some I wouldn't have thought about, are shaping up and benefiting, making an impact to them and their life. So, yep, we'll just keep doing the same, better, bigger, faster, I guess.
Awesome, Sebastien. Thank you for your time today. I hope that the Bitazza community has learned something today. I think it's a great way to end our AMA series. It's been such a great year for crypto, especially with the metaverse and the NFT doing what it did. Very excited and very grateful to have you on, Sebastien, and I hope we can have another session next year and see how everything goes by then.
I hope so as well. Thank you, Didi. Thank you, Art.
Thank you so much. So with that, let us wrap up tonight, and we hope to see you again soon. And then stay tuned, Bitazzans. We will have more projects coming to visit us next year. As always, it's always been a pleasure to talk to passionate projects co-founders and creators. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us, and good night. สวัสดีค่ะ